This is Dreamland.
It certainly is. And I'll say a good Sunday evening to all of you. I'm Art Bell. As usual, in a moment from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, our scientific reporter, I would say one of the world's foremost investigators into crop circles and animal mutilation. She has a couple of books out on the subject and other high strangeness, I think would be fair to say. She'll be here with a report, and boy, I'll tell you, Thursday evening, there was a report on CNN confirming everything Linda Moulton Howe said about Pfiesteria and the report she's had, and validating every bit of it. Fishermen beginning to get very sick because of the fish they handle. They actually showed brain scans in which these fishermen had brains that were up to 70% in the photographs changed in one way or another from a normal brain. They couldn't remember things. This, folks, is from fish in our ocean. So we'll get to all of that. Not that today's report is oriented that way, but I wanted to validate what Linda Moulton Howe has been reporting on. Finally, it makes the mainstream press. Well, all right, now, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, here is Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, welcome.
Well, hi, Art.
It must be hard for you to know what to report on. They're having the crop season of all time over there in Great Britain.
It's extraordinary. I have dozens of these amazing formations that Peter Sorensen has been drawing on a daily basis and getting facts back to me. They are, without doubt, some of the most amazing, and even another fractal kind of formation that has been repeated this summer, a variation on last year. And I'm so delighted to hear that CNN has put on a story that shows the work that Johns Hopkins and Duke University have done on the effects of the toxin that is released from the Pfiesteria organism when it is in a particularly aggressive stage that does kill fish and as they attack the fish. And it's a plant-animal combination of a thing called a dinoflagellate, and we all need to be more aware of what is in our environment and what we're doing.
Linda, I'd like to congratulate you for being on this story just about a year before the mainstream press.
Well, in fact, I've been reporting about it for 2 years, and it's at last, it seems like that political bodies are beginning to respond and fund changes. And in fact, my lead tonight is from the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences to popular newspapers such as USA Today. There are increasing headlines about the alarming disappearance of amphibians around the world.
Yes.
In the United States alone, it is now estimated that 1/3 of the toad, frog, and salamander population is gone.
Wow.
U.S. Interior Secretary Bruce Babbitt recently told reporters that in a visit to Yosemite National Park in California, the night was so quiet and free of the amphibian croakings that should have been there that Babbitt wants to increase scientific monitoring of the animals. But scientists already know that Yosemite's amphibian population is in trouble. Recent head counts were compared to studies made in the park back in 1915. Yosemite had 10 species of frogs and toads then. Today, 3 of those species have died out, and there has been a large decline in the remaining 7.
My.
Researchers this summer were also alerted to mass deaths of frogs in some Minnesota lakes. Viruses and fungus have been traced in some, but many scientists argue that the germs and the fungus would not normally kill the amphibians in such numbers. So something in the environment might be weakening their immune systems. Amphibians are especially susceptible to water and air pollution because they breathe through their skin. But another culprit in the decline and extinctions of amphibians could be increased ultraviolet B radiation from the sun. I've interviewed zoologist Andrew Blaustein from Oregon State University several times on Dreamland about his research that shows natural sunlight on the Cascade Lakes now literally kills amphibian eggs. He thinks the cause is increased UVB radiation produced when the protective ozone layer that surrounds our planet is destroyed by industrial chemical emissions. Increased UVB radiation has also been shown to weaken immune systems, and that might explain why some amphibians are now dying from viruses and fungi that normally would not be lethal. On top of ozone thinning, there is also the huge problem of water pollution. This past week, the Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper summarized a June 1998 report produced by the U.S. Geological Survey, which states that unsafe levels of radium, which can cause cancer, were found in 1/3 of 170 wells tested in southern New Jersey. Worse, in more heavily populated areas, 65% of the tested wells contain water that exceeded federal standards for radium. The Philadelphia Inquirer pointed out that, quote, radium is a known cause of bone and nasal cancers. It is especially dangerous to children who have developed bone tissue or have developing bone tissue. When a person ingests radium, the body interprets the radioactive element as calcium and deposits radium in bones, unquote. One area in New Jersey where children have cancers at a much higher rate than in other New Jersey cities is Toms River. And last year, health officials found unsafe levels of radium in Toms River drinking water. Further, the USGS report specifically linked how fertilizers and lime used on residential and agricultural land can increase radium in underground water. In fact, southern and central New Jersey's largest aquifer was documented in the USGS report as having widespread radium contamination throughout the aquifer. The USGS has also found unsafe levels of mercury in the aquifer. But incredibly, health officials throughout southern New Jersey say they were not told about this most recent USGS report about well water contamination and learned about it from the Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper story. Yeah, when hundreds of furious New Jersey residents and health officials started calling last week to find out why they had not been informed, the USGS sent copies of its report to New Jersey's Ocean County Health Department with a cover letter that the Philadelphia Inquirer reprinted, and part of it states, quote, inadvertently, county health departments were not included in a previous mailing of this fact sheet. As you may know, articles that discuss some of the USGS findings have been published in a local newspaper, meaning the Philadelphia Inquirer. We apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused you, unquote. The cover letter was signed by the chief of the Geohydrologic Studies program of the USGS. And Art, this reminds me of North Carolina's dismissal of Pfiesteria as a real problem in its estuary waters until media and public pressure forced federal and state officials to start dealing with the problem.
I'm sure this is overstating it, but geez, Linda, that sounds like a toxic cocktail, and they overlooked reporting it to the public.
Well, it's almost like if we don't report it, it'll go away. And, of course, we know that's not true, and people and children and babies are drinking this water, or were until this report. How do we make government officials accountable when everyone seems to be afraid of full and open disclosures about increasing environmental deterioration?
Linda, when I was a child, I lived for quite a while in New Jersey. Is there any way of knowing how long this has been going on?
The USGS study, has taken 8 years. So over 8 years, they were getting measurements that they finally have put out in this report.
My God.
I know. And how do we clean up huge underground aquifers that are contaminated with such terrible things as radium and mercury?
I don't know.
Well, now switching gears to unusual phenomena and unidentified sky objects, I talked this week to a minister and his mother who live in Las Animas, Colorado. They described an object very reminiscent of other reports since the 1960s. Las Animas is a rural town east of Pueblo in the southeastern corner of Colorado. About 50 miles southwest of Las Animas is Piñon Canyon, a large U.S. Army training facility. And further west of Piñon Canyon are the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in Alamosa County, where the unusual death of a horse named Lady made international headlines in September of 1967. 31 years ago in that summer, Alamosa residents had reported seeing orange glowing lights in the night sky and strange aerial vehicles that move rapidly during the day. The owners of the dead horse were convinced that something from outer space killed Lady, and international headlines posed the question, did a UFO zap the Colorado horse, leaving it stripped of flesh from the neck up? When I produced my documentary film, A Strange Harvest, about the animal mutilation mystery, ranchers and law enforcement told me that when the orange glowing spheres showed up, they found dead animals missing an ear, eye, jaw flesh, tongue, genitals, and rectal tissue, all bloodless, with no tracks around. Periodically over the years, people have continued to report seeing orange-colored spheres in southern Colorado. And now Larry Riesel, a Las Animas minister, and his mother, Nona, say that on August 12, 1998, they both watched an odd-looking orange light, larger than the background stars, rise above a mesa and disappear, to rise again and disappear repeatedly. First, Larry Riesel, and then his mother, Nona.
All right, now this is a minister you're going to hear from.
Well, as we're sitting there facing to the west, then it would be more to our southwest, probably about 10 to 15 miles away from us. We watched this orange object come up over these bluffs, these mesas, probably about 50 feet above these bluffs, and then wink out. And then again, about another 15 minutes, did it again. And it'd hang there stationary for a while, and it looked like a molten orange liquid. And when it went down again, you could see an arc of orange light behind one of the mesas of the bluff.
And it just repeated this half a dozen times.
Right. It was about a span of 40 minutes.
And when you looked at this object through binoculars, what did you see?
Nice, round, circular object in kind of a molten orange with a little bit of reddish color to it.
And when you say molten, I think of lava.
Right.
Do you mean that it had a kind of motion to it?
Yes.
So that the whatever the surface of this orange glowing was, it did appear to have some kind of flowing motion.
Right.
Which people have described in other sightings as well.
It was a slow, like a lava lamp.
Mm-hmm.
No lava lamp. Well, it was so brilliant. And it just kind of looked like that, but it was quick. It was thick. I don't know how the whole, whatever that was, it was thick and very brilliant, orangey red.
Mm-hmm.
A very interesting thing because it was so thick. And then the light, when it went up the second or third time, it didn't make it. This is what I call it. But there was still a glow in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And it just looked like it was having trouble getting airborne to me.
And then suddenly...
Then it was up. It was there.
It went up.
Yeah, and how it got from zero, to that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those strange things that we don't know anything about.
And the orange object winks out, and the next thing I know, it's probably 20,000 feet in the air because it looks about the size to be a passenger jet, the light. And now it's two lights together, extremely bright, almost like two stars together, and it's wobbling back and forth.
Okay.
And we watched this for another 10 or 15 minutes or more, and it finally kind of disappears and winks out. But it went from that really round circular light, and then it went from, 200 to 300 feet off the ground to around 20,000 feet without going in between.
Mm-hmm. So from your sky watches the last couple of years, what would be the other most astonishing thing you've seen?
Same area, okay? You just have to see the area to know it's very remote. It was one of these orange globes that we see, only to me it was not round. These orange globes that we see, so they're prominent around here.
Mm-hmm.
This was more oval shaped,
mm-hmm.
and it wasn't as orangey. It was just a light, mm-hmm. and it had nothing. There was no things on it, no lights or anything. It was just a glow.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that when it looked like these little twinkling lights just flew out of it, were coming out, and they were going in this direction, if I remember correctly. Okay, they came out the south door. Okay, we'll call it like the thing had a door on it.
Mm-hmm.
Came out of the south door, circled around, and went to the north. All these little lights, and I don't know how many. I didn't count them.
Mm-hmm. But more than half a dozen?
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And what happened to the orange glowing thing after the little twinkly lights?
After a while, it blinked out.
Have there been any reports of any unusual animal deaths?
I talked to an auctioneer and a land broker. This has been about a month ago at an auction. And we got to talking about Bible prophecy and some different things like that. And I asked him if anybody talked to him about cattle mutilations. And he said some ranchers had talked to him about it, but he wouldn't give out any names or anything like that because no one wanted to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Implying that there have been some...
There had been along the Arkansas Valley, or Arkansas River, here in the valley, somewhere between here and Fowler and the area, but he wouldn't elaborate on it. He just said, they just don't want to talk about it. He said, I'll just tell you that I have heard it.
And in Trinidad, Colorado, in the 1970s, a little further southwest of there, the chief investigator for the district attorney's office and a deputy both sat in a car and watched an orange light the size of the full moon split in two, each sphere racing off in opposite directions, then coming back together into one orange glowing sphere that moved down toward the ground and disappeared. At the same time, they were investigating dozens of animal mutilation cases. And if anyone listening has recently seen such orange spheres or knows about new animal mutilations, please fax me, Linda Howe, at 215 area code 491-9842. That's area code 215-491-9842. Or write to me at Post Office Box 300 in Jamison, Jamison, Pennsylvania, zip code 18929. That's Post Office Box 300, Jamison, PA 18929.
All right. Linda, we've only got a few seconds, and I know this is utterly unfair, but I mean, these are incredible developments regarding these sightings and animal mutilations.
Right.
After all these years, do you want to take a fast guess at what it is?
Well, in my work and in this newest book out, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness, that's Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores, are some of the best military voices discussing not only who or what could be interacting with this planet, but even possibly why. And
all right, then summed up, you do believe this is an extraterrestrial presence.
It's a complicated one that in some instances appears to be extraterrestrial and may be defined as something else in others. That's why it's so complex.
All right. As always, wonderful. Thank you, Linda. If there are any developments during the week, we'll have you on. Otherwise, we'll see you on Dreamland next Sunday.
Great, Art.
All right. Thank you and good night. Linda Moulton Howe, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Boy, that was some report. Coming up is Dr. Barry Taff. We're going to be talking about ghosts. Once again, here I am. Boy, do you have a treat coming up. Probably the most interesting guest that I've ever had on the subject of ghosts and things that go bump in the night, and maybe sometimes during the day as well, is Dr. Barry Taff. He is a remarkable interview. And, well, all right. I know that Dr. Taff was the principal investigator in what we know as the entity case, a truly, truly frightening case of manifestation, I guess, actually attack by some sort of manifestation would be more like it. The good doctor's book coming out is Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, Explorations of the Unknown, and there are so many of you on the web that if you go to the web, you will now find a link, Dr. Taff's name, and a link, and you can actually purchase on the net the book. You can read an excerpt from the book for free, and you can read about Dr. Taff. But this time, I think, we're going to let Dr. Taff... Dr. Taff, welcome to the program.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
For some reason, your audio's down a little bit.
I guess because someone's trying to beep in, that's all. It'll click off in a second.
No, but I mean the actual level of the audio is down. It was quite good a moment ago when I was talking to you on the phone, and now it's gone bad. I wonder what's happened.
Nothing's changed on this end.
I can't even hear you. Are you talking directly into the phone?
I'm talking in a regular phone.
All right, I'm going to try something here. Let me try and redo my side here and see what we get. All right, are you there?
Yes.
No, we still have a totally... Oh, you're not on some sort of headset, are you?
No, normal phone.
Oh, now it's okay.
Yeah. See, someone was beeping in, and when that sort of diminishes the quality on the line.
I see.
That's all it is.
Boy, I'll say it does. All right, what I would like you to do, if you would, is to tell us about yourself this time. You sort of your life story, including your professional career and how you got into all this.
Okay, well, the reason I'm into this field, actually, my background is I've been a parapsychologist working in this field for approximately 30 years. I worked out of UCLA's former parapsychology laboratory from 1969 through 1978 when it was formally terminated. I was working there as a research associate. I hold a doctorate in psychophysiology from UCLA, and during my 30 years, I've investigated more than 3,500 cases of ghosts, hauntings, poltergeists, as such, conducted extensive studies in telepathy, precognition, remote viewing. Some of the work I did was I guess you'd call it the initial protocol development for what was now called remote viewing. This was done in the early 1970s before SRI picked it up and the military took it over. I was also myself investigated as a psychic subject, which was published in a medical journal back 23 years ago.
Now, that's one I didn't know about.
Right. It was called A Laboratory Investigation of Telepathy, the Study of a Psychic. That's what got me into all this. When I was growing up as a child, I was having a profound number of what's called telepathic, clairvoyant, precognitive experiences, out-of-body experiences.
Can you, that's really interesting, and this is a side of you I had no idea about. Can you describe, what happened to you as a child?
Well, I mean, I thought everyone... I'll give an example of a classic case regarding my background. I was 10 years old. You're in the 5th grade. I was playing handball or foursquare on the courtyard, whatever they call it. You bounce the ball from one little square to another with other kids.
Right.
And a little blonde girl is walking towards me, and suddenly, in my mind's eye, I see a plastic bag on her side and a tube going into her body.
Oh,
my. I was 10. I didn't know what a colostomy was. But I saw this, and I'm going, why is this there? So, being a 10-year-old child and not knowing any better, I walked up to her and asked her what it was. And she panicked and ran in and told the teacher, and they dragged me into, the principal's office. This was an elementary school, and sure enough, she had a colostomy, and she was wearing a bag, but it was under her clothes.
Oh, my.
And I assumed everyone had these experiences. I didn't think it was that unusual.
No, of course that would be the case. In fact, for it to be otherwise would be suspect. In other words, anybody who had these, what, normal people would call powers, would not be suspect of them at all until they suddenly realized, maybe in the principal's office, that this is not normal.
Right, and then he began questioning me. He said, well, did I sneak in the girl's bathroom? Did I look up her dress?
Yeah.
The obvious. And I said, well, no, I just looked at her as she walked towards me, and I saw it. And he said, what do you mean you saw it? And I said, well, just like you have that inflamed appendix scar that never healed quite well. And that, he turned several shades of purple, and that ended the conversation. And, I thought, other people don't have these experiences? Why don't they? And so what was normal for me at that time wasn't normal for my friends and my family. And I was curious, why was I having these experiences? What was different or unique about me? I mean, there was nothing physically different that I was aware of.
Is that your first recollection, or now that you think back past even that?
Oh, it precedes that by many years, but that was just a classic situation where I'd be around somebody and I'd know something about them or, whatever. Another situation was someone in the school, this is again an elementary school, was stealing bicycles. And I just went up to this one person and I said, why are you doing it? And she finally broke down and admitted that her friends were stealing the bikes. So, I just assumed this was normal, that you could just know or sense these things. And, who knew? And this was back, a long, this is like, 40 years ago. So it's...
Now, this leads to an obvious question, and that is it your view, your best guess, that you were born with this, or that it developed in some way in your early years? What do you think?
Well, probably a combination of both, Art. It's like my feeling about this aspect of the human condition is that it's sort of like we all have muscles, and yet we all drive cars, but most of us will never become a race driver because we lack the physical stamina, the endurance, the coordination, and etc. Most of us, may participate in some simple sport activity because we enjoy it, but few of us will ever become decathlon champions. I think everyone has a little potential in them, and it varies from person to person. Some, just like some people are born with a better physique, better vision than others.
Right.
Some people have an incredible inherent potential, and if they receive the proper type of feedback, positive feedback and reinforcement to develop a learning paradigm within their own mind, they can substantially improve their ability.
All right, but one would think, based on what little you have told us, that yours would have been squashed big time beginning in the principal's office.
Well, I tended not to listen to what other people said because I know what I experienced. So
right.
It's not like they said you couldn't have done it. They just thought that there was some alternative explanation for it. After these things happen hundreds, if not thousands of times, varying type of experiences in this area, you begin to either assume that you're, having emotional problems, you're, delusional, or something beyond the scope of our current understanding is occurring. And, of course, I picked the latter.
Well, delusional would be you're saying there's a bag on this girl,
and there isn't,
and then there isn't one.
Right.
Then you'd have to wonder about delusional. But when there is one, then even a 10-year-old mind has got to begin to conclude, why do I know this and everybody else does not?
Right. And so I just, from that point on, I had a lot of friends, but they kept me at an arm's length because they were kind of frightened because I'd always come up with things that I shouldn't know or shouldn't have known or couldn't have known, and trivial things. As you're growing, the minutiae of life.
Sure.
That what happened was I was in upper division college, and I heard about Dr. Thelma Moss at UCLA and tried to get hold of her. Initially, I couldn't, but I met one of her.
What age were you now?
I was 21.
Okay, so by this time you were really wanting to know what the hell
Right.
was going on with you.
It was probably the most predominant aspect of my life at that point. It was, and there were aspects of it that were semi-controllable, meaning they were almost volitional. So I met a student, a graduate student, who actually worked with Thelma Moss, and he introduced me to her, and she sat me down, after I spoke a little bit about my background, and she just threw me her keys and said, psychometrize these, tell me what you can tell me. Now, I knew nothing about the woman other than the fact that she worked at UCLA, and they had a little lab going, and I proceeded to tell her things about herself. This just popped into my head, and apparently much of it was accurate. Described some of her best friends, what they looked like, some of their medical problems, whatever. And she was impressed, so I became a research assistant in the lab, and I became also a subject where she did a formal study on me, which was published in Behavioral Neuropsychiatry.
Dr. Taff, how could what is this, like our third or fourth interview maybe? Fourth interview. How could I have interviewed you for 4 times and not known about all of this?
I don't know. I guess we just jumped to more dramatic material.
This is dramatic enough. In other words, this explains why you then went on to be at UCLA in parapsychology for all those years, and it explains everything. And somehow I missed it. Bad me.
Right. If it had not been for my own personal experiences in this area, I don't think I ever would have gone into this, because I'm very skeptical by nature, and I'm more oriented towards science. So I would have been very dubious. All these experiences would have been extremely dubious to me. And since I've never used drugs and I don't abuse alcohol, if use it at all, as most of my friends did, we were growing up in that hippie era.
Sure.
I don't know. I guess for some reason my brain was attuned to this, and I became sort of used to it.
All right. So there it began. She tossed you the keys. You
Right.
told her what you knew, and then what?
Well, then she said, would they like to run a study on me, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, you want to work in the lab as a research assistant. I said, certainly, that sounds like it'd be fun. And, you get to do different, you've already learned some protocol in classes and in laboratories in college. And, I was just about to enter graduate school. Well, I don't know, this was 2 years before I entered graduate school. This was 1969. So it was, it was a very fortunate opportunity. And I think Dr. Moss looked at me as a psychic pet.
A psychic pet?
Because there were certain things I could turn on. There were certain aspects of my abilities that seemed to be relatively reliable as any of these things can be.
In what areas mostly?
The only thing I've been able to do that's consistent is to diagnose people, which of course is illegal because I'm not a medical doctor. But I seem to be good at describing what's physically wrong with people. And I feel it as if I'm having the problem. And it caused enormous difficulty.
All right, question for you. Is this something that just is always present when you meet somebody?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you call it up on demand, or what?
Both. It's, for example, I remember one instance I went to see a movie with some friends, sat down in the seats in the theater, and I started, and there's someone to my left, I don't know, a stranger sitting there,
yeah.
And I suddenly developed an acute pain in my left kidney. And it was killing me, but I didn't have it before I sat down, and, I'm in good health. And I thought, this is odd. And I turned to the person and said, this is going to sound really weird, but do you have a weak or a painful left kidney? And she said, yeah, how did you know?
Oh, my.
Things like that. You go to a party, you meet someone, you shake his hand, and suddenly I grabbed my chest and I said, do you have a rheumatic heart? You're having problems now? Yeah. I said, can you, kind of just backed away.
I would think that other people would be really, really, really uncomfortable. It would feel, for me, for example, if I were to shake your hand and you were to say, boy, how about that heart valve? I would be really uncomfortable in that situation, and I would imagine you didn't make a lot of close friends outside of the professional staff.
Well, more so along that line of thinking, I've scared off some of my best friends. When I was in early college, undergraduate college, my neighbor and I traded off driving to school because we shared a lot of the classes and time schedules. So one day we're driving in his car. He had a Plymouth Barracuda, 68 Barracuda. And so we're driving, and suddenly I said, stop the car. And he goes, why? I said, just stop. And he said, why? We'll be late. I said, look, we're going to get in an accident. A woman in a red 66 T-Bird is going to T-bone us. And it's going to have beige interior. She's going to have black hair, like in a beehive. This is, the 60s. And I said, your car's going to be pretty badly damaged. And he goes, are you out of your mind? And I said, just stop the car.
Yes.
Let's sit here and just veg out for 10 minutes or listen to the radio or go get something to drink, get a nice tea or something. He wouldn't do it. So I buckled the old-fashioned shoulder belts they had then that weren't integrated into the seat belt. And within a few minutes, there was the accident. We were broadsided, and we weren't hurt, but the car was pretty badly damaged. And that was the end of our friendship. Right there. It's over.
Oh, my God. And it was as described all the way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the car was a 66 red T-Bird with a beige, and there was a woman with the ratted beehive black hair, and he just looked at me like I was...
Yeah, you know what he probably thought?
That I made it happen.
He probably thought that you planned the damn thing.
That I set it up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness.
No, that actually never entered his mind. All I ever got from him was that it scared him severely enough where he didn't want to be around somebody who was going to tell him things that were going to happen that he didn't know of. So,
well, look, I know one person like yourself. He's Daniel Brinkley.
Oh, yes, I
know.
know.
And Daniel is a dear, dear friend of mine. But Daniel creeps me out every time I'm with him. Never fails, ever. When Daniel is talked about, he'll pick up a phone and call me, and he'll say, you're talking about me, huh? Daniel will grab a piece of paper, and I really can't describe in what case this was, but I know personally this to be true. And he would be able to tell me who wrote it, what their motives were, what their house looks like, what was out in front of the house, what kind of car. Mm-hmm. It totally creeps me out. And Daniel, if you're listening, buddy, I love you, but it does creep me out. And that's how a normal person, in quotes, I think reacts to this sort of thing.
Yeah, I was, in 1973, I was dating this really beautiful girl who I met in the lab. She was came in to visit some friends, and we became real close. And at one point, I turned to her and I said, you know, you have a benign tumor in your left breast. She went, what? I said, don't worry, it's benign. And, you know, so she said, yeah, right. Well, she started working for a big company. They gave her a medical, you know, workup, you know, for the insurance physical, and they found it. And they did a biopsy, and it was benign, but they still took it out. And she said, I can't take this. Well, I said, didn't I be of service? That's not the point. I don't want somebody that can literally look through me like a plate glass window. And she goes, I'm sorry, I can't live a normal life and be around someone, you know, that has X-ray vision, so to speak. Well, okay.
Now, can you describe how you, for example, a benign tumor in a breast, how would you, do you visualize that? Do you feel that? I can understand when there's pain, for example, that you would empathize and feel that pain. But with a benign tumor, how would you know?
I don't remember the precise details because it was 25 years ago, but I remember we were together and I suddenly had this feeling or sensation in the left side, you know, left pectoral area.
Yeah.
And I guess the best way to describe it is whatever I do when I look at people to initiate this process, it's sort of like a color CAT scan. I can't describe it in my mind. That's what it looks like. Like you're looking at an anatomy book and you've sliced the person open. You know, you've sectioned them.
God.
And in my mind, I see it. And what's intriguing, for example, is not long ago I diagnosed this friend, and I told her she had some degenerative problems with the C4, 5, and 6 vertebrae.
Right.
And I said, these aren't traumatic injuries. These are degenerative problems, and described bone spurs and the whole bit. And I just saw the scans, and they were exactly what I saw in my mind. So what is it I'm doing, and how do I do it? And if I knew that, you know, I don't know. I mean, I probably would be living here right now.
Okay, so now you began this odyssey at UCLA as sort of a, you said a pet psychic.
Right.
The house pet psychic. Did they do a lot of work and testing on you?
Well, there were 2 studies done, and I said one was done by Dr. Moss, which was published in a medical journal, which mostly dealt with telepathy, but within that telepathy there was some clairvoyance sort of snuck in and some precognition snuck in. And that was the first hint to me, among many other things that developed in our early remote viewing development work, was that this phenomena, what we call, you know, telepathic or clairvoyance or precognition, are all different aspects of the same thing. It's all determined by where in time, space and time it appears to come from, and where we are when we perceive it. So it's all very subjective.
Now, the other side of this is, even though you might totally freak out friends, I would imagine that people who have an illness that is undiagnosed that they desperately need help with would come to somebody like you and beg you to try and help them. Has there been a lot of that? We're at a break point here, so it's a quick answer I've got to
get.
Yes,
they have.
They have. All right. Stand by, Dr. Taff. Dr. Barry Taff, who was the principal investigator in the entity case, is my guest. And boy, am I learning a lot about him I didn't know. Coming up on the top of the hour, I'm Art Bell from an area near Dreamland. This is Dreamland. It is really an amazing thing that you can interview somebody, as I have Dr. Taff, this being the 4th time, because he's such a fascinating person. And in the 4th interview, find out so much you didn't know about the man. Absolutely remarkable, nothing short of remarkable. Dr. Taff will be right back. Boy, do I have an exciting ghost story for you. This ghost is a lightning-fast disk copying program available from Binary Research International. Ghost allows the contents of any PC's hard drive to be copied to any other location, like, say, another hard drive, external JAZ, zip, or CD-ROM drive. Now, you can also create a disk image file, store it on a server, use that image file to set up dozens of PCs simultaneously.
Now, just imagine how useful that might be in any organization with a large number of like-configured PCs. Oh, and talk about speed. Look, Ghost will install a 300-megabyte Windows 95 system, including the applications, in about 5 minutes. And Ghost will work with virtually any PC operating system. Try it free. I said free by downloading an evaluation copy from www.ghost.com. Get the spirit of Ghost, or call Binary Research Haunt at 1-888-GHOST-98. That's 1-888-GHOST-98. Or here are the numbers: 1-888-446-7898. Are you overweight? Would you like to lose an average 8 to 10 pounds in the next month? We know that fiber helps sweep fat out of the digestive tract like a broom, reducing the amount of fat your body stores as excess weight. Well, let me tell you about a revolutionary fiber, chitosan. It's a natural fiber that comes from shellfish. It not only sweeps fat, but also absorbs up to 10 times more fat than other fibers. You can get this fiber in a formula called ChitoSlim. ChitoSlim is effective because you can lose weight without changing your eating habits. And there are no stimulants. It's a gentle, effective way to lose excess weight. Here's the special offer. When you order a 90-day supply of ChitoSlim, you'll get an antioxidant moisturizing cream absolutely free. Call 1-800-557-4627. It's guaranteed to work or your money back, and it's not available in stores. So call 1-800-557-4627. That's 1-800-557-4627. You've got nothing to lose but the fat. Well, all right, once again, from Los Angeles, California, here is Dr. Barry Taff. Doctor, welcome back.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm just really puzzling about how I could not have known all this about you, because you always came at this as an investigator, and that's all we've ever talked about, not the investigated. So it's remarkable.
You know, it gives one a different perspective to be looking at it from both sides.
It sure does. All right. Well, you have not only. Before I even get into that, let me go back to the question that I just made you briefly answer. Have you done a lot of diagnosis of people that have come to you? I mean, have you had or do you not? Well, it's certainly public now, but I mean, have you not made that very public in the past, or what?
I don't broadcast it because, first of all, I'm not a medical doctor, so you're not legally supposed to do this. But when I do it, all I do is tell people this is what I think is wrong with you. Go to your physician and have them do the proper workups to check it out.
Do you find it to be a bothersome thing, people coming to you all the time?
It's not that frequent because the majority of the time people want resolution, or they want you to tell them what to do about it. And not only can I not do that, but I wouldn't do it even if I could, because that's there's laws against that.
You bet there are.
So, but I've had enough success at doing it. In fact, one instance was particularly interesting. Some years ago, one called me, and I went out to see if I could be of help to her. And I'm doing my thing, and I said, "There's nothing wrong with you. Why did you call me?" I said, "There's nothing wrong." And she said, "Oh, no, there is." And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am," but I said, "I don't feel anything wrong with you." So finally I said, "Look, I don't want to waste your time. What's the problem?" He said, "Well, I've got a pain in the first joint on the left index finger."
Uh-huh.
I said, "That's arthritis. I wouldn't even pick that up because it's so minor. That's not a
normal human condition,
right,
with aging.
It's not a pathology or dysfunction or disease process. It's what happens, unfortunately, when we get older." And I said, "That's why you called." And I said, "It's unfortunate you're having the problem." But I said, "I wouldn't pick that up." That's like saying I pick up the fact that we age. Well, of course we age.
All right. Well, then I can easily understand how you moved into the area of investigation that you did. Now I really understand it. With regard to ghosts, one of my favorite subjects of all time. I mean, we could discuss ghost telepathy, poltergeist, UFOs, precognition, remote viewing. I'm beginning to get to the point where I'm almost ready to put all of these into the same bag, and that may be too simplistic, but I'm beginning to wonder if there is not some sort of single source that's behind all of this.
Well, I think what there may be, from my own experiences and my research, is that there seems to be other forces at work here in our domain, in our universe, in our world. forces that are not necessarily electromagnetic or not gravitational or not, and certainly not nuclear as we know them. And these forces seem to may be at the root of the paranormal, and may also be the forces that UFOs may utilize to function and perform the miraculous events they do in our environment. And so when things appear and disappear, when things go through solid walls, when lights manifest unusual apparitions, we call that paranormal. It's a generic sort of buzzword.
Yeah, it's not paranormal, not normal to us.
It's beyond the normal, so it's paranormal. And I think that there is a connection, there is a definite correlation between all these phenomena, and we've had numerous cases that began, as I said, as abductions and then it had extensive paranormal fallout, or began as a poltergeist manifestation.
Well, when you move into whether it was the entity case or any other ghost or poltergeist case, and you move in as an investigator, do you find that your abilities aid you? I would imagine the answer to that would be probably yes, but does it skew scientific objectivity?
I really am not interested in a subjective approach to this type of research at all, because it doesn't lend any more credible information to it doesn't add any more data to our base, in the sense of psychics are, great in the proper environment and the proper perspective, and their information can be very helpful in certain situations. But when you're investigating ghosts, even if you could confirm and validate what it is they're talking about, names, places, and dates, which of course can be done with enough research,
sure,
that it could mean that they're just somehow, it's retrocognition, they're sensing the past, they're sensing it clairvoyantly at a distance. That doesn't prove their communication with whatever energy, entity, phenomena is there. And I'm more interested as a scientist to physically document the phenomena in terms of like thermal imaging and optical imaging and
yes,
microwave imaging and
hard
audio.
Hard science.
Right, because otherwise, if it's reduced to subjective human experience, people are going to say, yeah, right, I really believe that. Some person claims he's talking to someone that's dead. Well, I can't see him, I can't hear him.
Sure.
And, go to any psychiatric journal that's full of people who claim they're hearing voices in their head. So.
Well, here is, in my opinion, the $64 million question, or maybe with inflation, billion now. And that is, do we continue to exist after physical death, and in what form?
I think that's probably the greatest single question facing the human condition.
Right, but with your area of investigation, you'd be better qualified to answer it than most.
Well, yes and no. Yes, from my own subjective experience and some of the research, no, because there's a lot of information available, but it isn't, unfortunately, hard objective information. It's the anecdotal type, and no one has yet died, literally, and come back and describe something, and not enough people have had, perhaps fortunately, have not had that experience. But I believe, based on the experiences I've had and the research I've done, that whatever makes each of us unique unto ourselves, in some form, probably existed long before our bodies were around.
You're not going to have heard of this, Doctor, and I'm only sorry now I didn't keep it. About a week ago, I had a report of some new drug that somebody has laid their hands on. It's rather underground at the moment. That claims to be able to produce clinical death and give you an NDE and just about guarantee you'll come back out of it again. Now, this was so unusual and revolutionary that I think I mentioned it on one other show. Now, there are people who have had NDEs, near-death experiences. How much stock do you put in what people say about these NDEs?
Well, to me, the most significant aspect of a near-death experience is the out-of-body, not the tunnel of light and not the seeing a being at the end of it, because there's so many interpretations of that. But what does impress me is when they apparently float up from their body and they're able to see and perceive and remember events happening at great distances from their body, which I myself have experienced when I was younger, having out-of-body experiences. And it's very vivid, it's very clear, it's like you're there, but you're not physically.
I know.
That, to me, suggests that consciousness at some level can separate itself, can dislocate itself from the body, and it, in some way manifest itself in a remote location, perceive information, and then bring it back to the body.
Okay, but is this an ability that we have while we're alive and ends with physical death?
That's
the $64 billion question.
Yeah,
you've got it. I was in Paris, France recently. I had, in all my life, I've never had an OBE. I had a real beaut. None of the classic, it was while I was on vacation, none of the classic humming and buzzing and paralyzing, none of that. It was instant. In an instant, in just an instant, I accelerated straight up out of my body, up above Paris, and I don't even say that I physically was particularly aware of what was below me. I was in the most joyful, ecstatic condition a person, I mean, there aren't words to describe it. It so shocked me that I immediately, or at least I think immediately, time reference is very difficult, I slammed back into my body, and I woke my wife up, and I started to tell her about all of this. How do you wouldn't believe what just happened to me. She was really happy to be awakened for all that, but it was I didn't expect it. I was out of my natural element. When I'm here doing a show every day, I've got a very set routine. That was broken. I was in a different place. Maybe that had something to do with it, but there was no warning. There was nothing. Boom, it just happened. And there's no question about it. I've had flying dreams. And I know when I wake up, they're dreams. I knew what I just had. I was out of my body. What the hell happened to me? And better yet, where was I?
Right. Well, the question is, even beyond that, Art, is what is it of us that externalizes itself from the body?
Yeah.
What aspect, what part of consciousness, as if we know what consciousness is, but there's something that is not neurochemical or electrochemical.
You bet.
Can, I don't know, soul, spirit, whatever, I don't know, can leave the body and can transit and to virtually anywhere. And
all right, but the key thing again, well, let's roll over it. You have abilities, and you've had them all your life, but you're alive now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the best way to describe it is when I was a young kid, I'd lay back in bed and think, "Gee, someday I'm going to get old like everyone else.
Yep.
Someday I'm going to die like everyone else.
Yep.
And I won't be here anymore." And I thought, what an unpleasant thought. I don't want to die. Who wants to die? But then I thought, not that long ago, I wasn't alive. And that didn't bother me. I'm not worried about that. I don't have any painful or disturbing memories or recall of not being physical. And based on that and based on my out-of-body experiences when I was younger and other experiences, I think it's basically existing in another domain, but you're not the way we are now, but you may carry part of what makes you with you.
Well, how's this for a hard one to answer? If we, for the sake of a discussion, assume that there is nothing after physical death, that's it, blank. As you pointed out, you don't recall anything before you were born.
Unless you have memories of being reincarnated.
But stick with me here. And so then, for the sake of the discussion, if it's an absolute blank after we're gone, then what the hell is the point of this? I mean, we're here for a cosmic blink. Suns are around for a medium amount of time. We're here for a cosmic blink of the eye. I mean, it's almost totally without reason and I'm searching for the right word here, meaning this short physical existence if there is not more to it than this.
Right. But of course, people, us human beings, try to give reasons to everything. We think there is a reason and rhyme for everything that is, and it may just be that, it may be as simple as the fact that we exist in different forms, but we change forms. In other words, energy as we know it, conservation of energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can change forms from one, to potential to kinetic or, something along those lines.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as simple as that when your body stops, you physically die, but depending on who you are, the conditions under which you die, and perhaps some other variables may determine if part of your consciousness hangs around here and you start appearing as a ghost or an apparition, or you transition to wherever it is we go when we leave this physical domain.
All right. So I'm wishing, hoping, even praying that there is an existence after the physical one, because we're not here very long. So that leads us into ghosts as a primary area of investigation regarding whether or not there is an afterlife. Now, you've done a lot of investigation into ghosts. What have you concluded? What is a ghost?
Well, first of all, there's different categories. There is, when you deal with this type of phenomena, there is this category which suggests a haunting or a ghost, which in and of itself implies discarnate intelligence or disembodied intelligence or a consciousness or a soul that is incorporeal. And theoretically, that would imply survival at some level.
That's right.
Then there is the more down-to-earth, if we can call it that, end of this research, which says that the majority of this phenomenon, probably 98 or 99% of it, if not all of it, stems from the living human psyche, that virtually everything we're experiencing and investigating can be explained by some form of psychokinesis.
That's where I begin to get nervous. If that's true, it's a manifestation of the living, and then that leads one more toward the conclusion that there is nothing after death.
But like the first chapter in my book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, the first chapter is called A Haunting Thought. And what I try to do is basically break down these different categories, and what my conclusion is that this phenomena is no more than the product of a unstable personality. It is indeed a haunting thought. That I think there is a small part of this phenomena, ghosts, hauntings, poltergeists, that clearly suggests and implies survival of consciousness. But the majority of cases that I've investigated and that I know other researchers have suggest that it's the product of a living human mind. But
manifestation of a human mind.
That it's the product of a living human psyche. But we occasionally get those cases where to anyone but a blind man, the evidence is all piled up on one end, and that is that something of someone is still hanging around.
Okay, let's take those 90% and throw them away and talk about the 10%. In your opinion, if you document those 10%, how conclusive is the evidence?
Well, I'll give you an example. So one of the most, in my 30 years of work, the most spectacular case, bar none, what I'd call the Mount Everest of my cases, took place in 1976 in the Hollywood Hills. We call it the Hollymont case, and this is in Chapter 1 in my book. And what makes this case unique is that no one was living in the house while I was investigating initially. That there were no pubescent adolescent children, no emotionally troubled or disturbed adults, and we found a body buried under the house from 1922.
You're kind of leaping ahead here in the story. There were no adolescents living in the house. Was there anybody living?
Well, what happened, the story is really impressive.
All right.
It's quite extraordinary.
Go ahead.
1976, a student at UCLA comes in our parapsychology lab, and he tells us of an incredible series of events that transpired at this house on Hollymont Drive in the Hollywood Hills. And he said that this woman walked in, and a throne chair flew across the room and pinned her to the wall. A kettle came off the stove, flying through the air under its own power, dumped water over her head. That cabbage was flying around the house with a knife in it, chasing people. And I said, "Did you see this?" He goes, "Yes, we were all there." I said, "Is there any way we can gain access to this house?" He goes, "Of course, let me, make some calls." And subsequently, we ended up at this house owned by a man named Don Jolly, who was a banker. And while the first night we were there, all hell broke loose. Things started flying around the house. Objects took off and flew at people.
You saw this with your own eyes?
And at one point, we're standing in a pantry, and thousands of coins apported from nowhere and started raining down from the ceiling.
What?
Not being dropped, raining, just appearing like in the movie Poltergeist.
Thousands of what?
Thousands of coins, pennies, thousands, just falling, and they filled the floor up to maybe our ankles.
Really?
Really. And it was the most, just standing there, watch it raining pennies.
Was pennies from heaven?
Right, exactly.
Was this, my God, I can barely imagine that. Was this your first official investigation of this kind?
Oh, no. My first case actually was even more extraordinary. One of my first cases took place in the first case took place in 68, but we had a case in 70 where Another clear indication, which is again in Chapter 1, of a haunting of a house in the Hyde Park district near Inglewood near the Forum here in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And the people in the house were killed in a car accident. The neighbors didn't know that they were dead, but they kept seeing them taking up the garbage, doing the lawn.
Right.
The relatives of the deceased people called us in, and while in the house we saw some things move around. Furniture was, somehow manipulated in the environment without any physical, interdiction. But what was more remarkable was we were holding sort of a little seance in the house. This was in August of 1970. And we didn't know what the people that lived there looked like. We had no idea except they were elderly. And at one point, we heard some strange sounds. And I went into another part of the room to see what was going on.
All right, hold it right there. Good cliffhanger point, and we'll be right back to you. It's the bottom of the hour. Absolutely incredible. I'm Art Bell. This is Dreamland. All right, and we're out. Hello, Broadcast.com audience. Oh, man, what an incredible story. Absolutely incredible. I'm going to give you a slow version of the phone numbers now, and we're going to begin taking calls. So anybody who wants to call now is welcome to. The first-time caller line is area code 702-727-1222. That's if you've never called before, obviously. The wildcard line is area code 702-727-1295. We have two toll-free lines, one for west of the Rockies, which is good in Canada and Mexico as well, at 1-800-618-8255, 1-800-618-8255, and east of the Rockies as well at 1-800-825-5033. That's 1-800-825-5033. What a remarkable story. So anyway, those are the lines. You can begin calling now. Dr. Barry Taff is my guest. And here I am. We're going to finish up this story, and shortly we are going to begin taking calls for Dr. Taff. I'm still stuck back in the pennies. And I'll kind of repeat what I told the Broadcast.com audience during the break here in a moment. The AMT Model 2 night vision spotting scope is an astounding instrument. It really is an instrument. It uses a Russian-built tube, and they make very, very good tubes. However, the optics come from here. They're assembled here. They're serviced here. It's kind of like the best of all worlds. I first got a night vision scope for security here at my home. Because I couldn't see who was out at the fence line on a moonless night. Well, with night vision, of course, night is turned virtually into day. So it's a wonderful security device. The U.S. used it during the Gulf War. We can see them. They can't see us. No contest, huh? So that's what I thought I wanted it for. But after I got it, I found out for looking at star fields, for looking at things that crawl in the night, nocturnal things, two- and four-legged. I mean, it's a blast. You go outside at night, and there's a whole different world underway. However, normally you don't see it. With night vision, you do. Now, this device has a 90-millimeter, 3-power, all-glass, high-quality optic lens. That's really, really important. A lot of night vision has lousy plastic lenses. Yuck. Not the AMT. That's what made us choose AMT. If you want one, there was a day, when civilians couldn't even get these. And even now, when you get it, it will come with a very strict warning about export, that sort of thing, which is interesting, but it is there. They don't want this technology out. But you can get it. Civilians can get it now. It's $349.95. It's the kind of thing that, you'll get it, you'll use it, you'll say something I can't repeat on the air when you look through it, then you'll show it to your neighbor, and your neighbor will order one. It's so amazing. $349.95. That price includes shipping and handling and getting it to you.
That is getting it to you, isn't it? So there you are. The usual wonderful Sea Crane warranty. Call Bob Crane tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. The number is 1-800-522-8863. 1-800-522-8863. If I guaranteed you a handful of dollar bills every time you fill your gas tank, would I get your attention? Well, that's essentially what happens when you install the Jacobs Ultra Team ignition system on your car. Your mileage will substantially increase, thus saving you dollars with every fill-up. I know it works, because I tried it on the little Geo Metro I had, increasing its mileage by 8 miles per gallon. Your exact increase will vary depending on the car you drive and how you drive. Here's just one example. On a 93 Honda Civic, you'll get a guaranteed 7 horsepower increase and at least 4 additional miles per gallon. All Jacobs ignition systems come with a 30-day money-back unlimited guarantee, less a small 10% restock fee. Now, what I'd like you to do first thing in the morning is call Jacobs Electronics and ask for the exact guaranteed mileage and performance increase for your specific vehicle. Call in the morning toll-free 1-888-IGNITION. That's 1-888-446-4846. It's on the web, of course, at www.jacobselectronics.com. Just call 1-888-IGNITION and ask for your free mileage and performance quotes. Well, all right, back now to Barry Taff, Dr. Barry Taff, who was at the UCLA Parapsychology Department 1969 through 1978, and really is a remarkable man. Dr. Taff, you're back on the air again. And we were right in the middle of a cliffhanger here.
Right. This was, as we were saying, a case in the Hyde Park district, or Inglewood, so to speak, 1970. While investigating the house, we were conducting a seance to see if we could make anything happen because we didn't feel like waiting for it indefinitely. And after the seance ended, I was meandering about the house, and suddenly there was a large man in there who was not part of our group. And he was tall, white hair, stocky, wearing a khaki-colored shirt and print slacks. And literally, he starts attacking me, starts strangling me and choking me. And, you know, I'm not a very large man. He picked me up and threw me in the bathtub, jumped on top of me, started strangling me while he was yelling, "Get out of my house, get out. This is my house." So there were 6 other men there, and they attacked him, and they started hitting him, and they beat him off me to the floor.
So in other words, this is
a normal man until we saw a guy just start beating me up, attacking me.
Was he part of the group that was...
No, he wasn't part of our group, no.
Now, how did this man appear?
Almost like he came in while we were in the other room, and we just encountered him as he walked in from the door. But we didn't see him come in, we just saw him there.
Oh, my.
So we just assumed it was, a neighbor or a prowler or, God knows what. So meanwhile, he attacked me, they beat him off me. He's on the floor, and I get up, my neck's red, my shirt's torn, my jacket's torn.
Yeah.
We see this older man just fade away, like in a movie, just dissolve. What's left is the man who brought us into the house. And he's taller and much younger.
Right.
He was a cadet at the police academy at that time. And we just stood there like, what?
Yeah.
And he came to, and he was bruised. He didn't remember anything that had happened. And we described what we had seen, and he was shocked. We helped him up to his feet. He excused himself, and he went to the bedroom, pulled a picture out of his dead grandfather, who was the one that he told us was haunting the house, who up to that time we had never seen. And the picture he showed us was exactly what we saw attack me.
Whether it was the first story you told about the pennies falling, or the one you just now told, as I told my audience during the break, or some of my audience during the break, look, I'm really going to be honest with you. If one of those things happened to me, I'd wet my pants, I'd run, and I don't know when I'd stop. I mean, it would scare me so thoroughly, so profoundly, that I couldn't handle it. I don't know that I could handle it. And how, even an objective investigator like yourself, I mean, how do you handle that?
Well, I guess it's the same mentality that goes along with, I also race cars, and I used to fly jets. And, It's when you're willing to get on a racetrack at 180 miles an hour,
Yeah.
and your life's on the line. If you make an error in judgment or someone else does, the car malfunctions, you die in an instant.
That's true.
That to me is a lot more life-threatening than this type of investigation is. So maybe I'm a risk taker. Maybe I'm just not worried about what ifs, or maybe I think real-world potential harm has a great deal more fear for me than this fringe reality does. I don't know. It's just for some reason it doesn't bother me.
You call it fringe reality
because it's not part of most people's daily life. So it is a fringe reality for most people because they read about it, they hear about it, they see a special documentary, they see a movie, they listen to your show, they read books, but they don't necessarily have direct encounters with this as regularly as perhaps I or people I work with.
All right. Here's a zinger for you, and then we're going to go to the phones. Do you think that there is more of this manifesting now, today, in 1998 than there was in 1980 or 70 or 60, or less?
It's a real hard question to answer because, one, we have more people. More people would generally assume there'd be more encounters or experiences because there's a higher probability of it. Also, a lot of this is an extension of the human psyche. More people under more stress, under more duress,
sure,
you're going to get more of it. Also, with more media in terms of TV, radio, books, magazines, the internet, it's everywhere. So it's almost, there's no way you couldn't run across it in today's world. So we may be more exposed to it, but there may not be more of it.
Fascinating. All right, let's intersperse a few calls here. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Barry Taff. Hi.
How you doing, Art? My name's Eric. I'm in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Hi, Eric.
How are you?
Fine.
Well, I guess I tend to agree with you. If that ever happened to me, I suppose I wet my pants too. Probably the reason why I had to turn off your show the other night on the impending or possible impending nuclear holocaust, it scared the hell out of me. I couldn't even listen to it anymore.
No, I know. It scared me too. My own shows frequently do that.
Yeah, it was. That's the first time. Anyway, question for Dr. Taft. Don't you think there would be hard empirical data at this point that showing the presence of ghosts or phenomena of the such, or don't we currently have the technology yet to detect it?
All right, that's a really good question. So many years, so many cases. Where is the hard data?
Well, that's an excellent question, and there's a multifaceted answer. One is the phenomenon itself is transient. It's extremely evasive. So that means you have to be in the right place at the right time with your instrumentation in the attempt to document it. And then, of course, whatever it is must in some way cooperate or be responsive to your attempts. Secondly, up until recently, we didn't have the technology in mass as we do today to document this. So it'd be like the equivalent analogy, or a good analogy, would be that, go to an airport, planes crash. How often have we recorded the actual crash?
That's right. Almost never. Right. Very occasionally, maybe at an air show where everybody's got a camcorder focused on the... And that's about it. Otherwise, no.
And today, with more people having camcorders, video cameras, you're getting more UFO activity, whatever. But also, it should be understood that this phenomena, the lights and the images displayed by this, the apparitions, for lack of a better term,
Doctor?
Yes.
One other question. I mean, has it ever been thought that possibly these aren't dead roaming people, but just different dimensions?
There's numerous theories about what we're dealing with, and the best way to describe it is we're measuring the effect of an unknown cause. Sometimes we call it psychokinetic, depending on the environment. Sometimes we call it, ghosts or hauntings. The bottom line is we don't know.
All right. Going back to the basis of the caller's question, though, maybe you could cite the best evidence we have, the best physical evidence that's been gathered in any case.
The evidence if you took it to trial, for example, the Entity case, and like San Pedro case, both of which are chronicled in my book, we have a vast amount of photographic and video evidence captured and documented on these cases. Yet if forced into court, these would be considered at best suggestive of a phenomenon we have yet to even understand. It does not prove ghosts exist, but it strongly suggests that there's something out there that can somehow affect our physical world and do physical things, some of which is producing lights. It's very rare to get an apparition on film or video.
Okay, lights. What about actual temperature reduction recordings? What about audio recordings? What about magnetometer readings and microwave readings? And what do we know, in other words?
These types of, various types of physical parameters, like you said, the background, like the dielectric constant or thermal imaging or microwave or temperature,
right.
they're all inclusive in terms of this type of investigation. However, we don't know enough about why the ambience changes under these conditions to really understand what it is the phenomena represents. In other words, is the phenomena altering the environment, or does the altered environment make the phenomena occur?
Yeah.
We don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
But there is a body of actual hard evidence, small albeit hard evidence.
The evidence is there, but I should tell you, Art, and tell the caller, that if forced into court, the evidence for UFOs would win a case. It's voluminous. The evidence for ghosts is much weaker, and it's more anecdotal and suggestive. The UFO evidence is kind of mind-boggling in terms.
I just can't imagine that if something very and I don't mean to sound skeptical, but I can't imagine if there wasn't something compelling, it wouldn't be on ABC News and NBC News, and they wouldn't be splashed all over the.
You're dead right.
Tabloids.
No, you're right. You're dead right, caller.
And that probably will happen. The first time somebody does record something like this, like a plane crash. But then again, you could go back to the Mexico City UFO sighting. Mm-hmm. How many times did people see it up here on the news? None that I know of.
None.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Very
and
few.
Hundreds of thousands of people saw that. So. Right.
Mm-hmm. Thanks to Britt and Lee Elders, we've seen them, but the good doctor is right. The amount of UFO evidence, if taken to court, or even better yet, a congressional hearing, would probably prevail, but not with regard to ghosts or not with regard to an afterlife. And if you want to know the truth, if I had one of the two questions that I would want to be answered more, that is to say the UFO question or the life after death question, I'm going for the life after death question every time. And here we have the least amount of evidence.
But also it's the one that affects the human condition the most profoundly, because it tells us where we come from, where we're going.
What do you think would be the effect on the human condition, Doctor, if we had conclusive evidence that there was no existence after death? Have you ever contemplated that?
Actually, more the reverse of that. But I think if it was, objectively established that when we died, that's it. We
right.
just rot in the grave, and
right.
that's the end of it.
That's it.
I think what it would do would decimate religious and spiritual beliefs. But I think most people who adhere to a greater spiritual perspective wouldn't accept it too readily. I think, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think in our lifetimes, let's say in the next 50, 60 years, 70 years, there's going to be any hard data coming out one way or the other. And if there is any data at all, it'll probably end up supporting the existence of another reality that sort of reinforces the notion that life exists once the body.
I hope and I pray that you are correct, but I must be absolutely honest with you and my audience. I don't know that to be the case. I don't know that to be the case. On the other hand, believe me, if I'd been in a room where pennies started to fall out of a ceiling until they got ankle deep, I'd feel very differently. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Barry Taff. Hi.
Good evening, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, Art.
Where are you, sir?
And my name's Bill. I live outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in Willowick on the lakefront.
Yes, sir.
I was going to have a question for Dr. Taff, but just may I support some comment you were just talking about life after death, if I may. I had, I guess, the experience of witnessing my mother passing on, she'd been on life support for an undue amount of time while the courts were still trying to settle out when a person was legally dead.
Yes.
But when they turned the machine off, I just had to share this with you. I was thinking about it as you're talking. Her body stopped breathing. I'd say it's hard to imagine a moment like that. You can't gauge time. But I would guess at least a minute. And I kept watching the scope that had been measuring all the electrical impulses through her body. And
sure.
I watched the wave get narrower and narrower and narrower. And then it just dawned on me. I thought she probably taught me the greatest lesson she'd ever taught me throughout my whole experience with her was, yes, there was an energy that went somewhere. As Dr. Taff said, it can't change state, but it went somewhere.
It went somewhere, yes.
And I had to believe that was her. How else could you explain it? I don't know.
Well, I'll give you one story that I can't erase from my mind that was told to me recently. It was a caller, I think, or a faxer. But this person was with a relative like you were when they died.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sort of loving final gesture as that dying moment came, my caller threw their body over the body of the person who was at the moment of death. And they felt the person or the person's spirit pass right through them.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't get that out of my mind.
Yeah, that is something.
Have you ever heard of anything of that sort, Doctor?
Oh, yes. I've heard of it in many different accounts and books. People speak of it, yeah. I've also run into it in various investigations where people describe situations similar to that.
Caller,
my question, if I
sure, fire away.
This is something that happened to me personally. Oh gosh, a good 25 years ago. I was intense in my work as a project engineer, and I'd have occasion to get up in the middle of the night when I was having something trouble me, and I'd work it out, and I was in intense specifications. Probably why I'm recuperating from a heart attack right now. But anyways, we lived a little further west of where we're here now, but we were always, for some reason, lived on the lake shore. And I was sitting in the dining room working out this situation, this one specification. I kept hearing these little voices going, going in the background, and I said, there's kids up again out next door because they used to sleep out a lot. And then it occurred to me, well, it's well into September, and they couldn't be.
Right.
So I get up and I walk to the back door, and the window, we had like a porch that had butted our dining room there, and I look out, nobody's there. So, well, maybe I'm hearing things. So I go back, I'm working. This is like 3:30 in the morning. I heard it again. I get up, and I go, and I look around. Okay, who's horsing around out there? Couldn't see anything. Finally went back to my work. I kept hearing it sporadically. I said, the hell with it. I'm just going to go on with my work. And I had occasion to travel a lot when we lived in that house. And my wife and even my kids used to tell me, they used to always hear the darndest things in this house. And it was in a well-developed area. It wasn't out in the middle of nowhere. And I didn't know how to ever classify that. I don't know if Dr. Taff's ever heard of situations like that. That's fairly commonplace, or is it a figment of a person's imagination, or what?
All right, Doctor?
Voices like that actually have been, we've encountered people telling us anecdotes about that, and I've run into it personally myself in a number of cases. One of them I'll discuss, a little later, where we heard them and we, repeatedly tried to record them, which didn't succeed. But
which would indicate, wouldn't it, that you're hearing them telepathically rather than vocally?
Not when 3 or 4 people independently of each other are hearing them. The chance of that being a group telepathic experience would be almost astronomical.
Really?
What it did was, when the voice-activated recorders were set up, the phenomena just wouldn't occur. When he turned them off, they would occur. So again, indicating an intelligent response, almost an evasive response on the part of the phenomena. And this was another one of our cases that strongly suggested a haunting versus a poltergeist.
My God, that must be frustrating for investigators.
Right, but then it made up, this particular case, the phenomena compensated for that in other more blatant and aggressive ways. So it was, but those voices we've run into them, we've heard them, we've in vain attempted to record them, and they've been reported to us by hundreds of people over the years.
Yeah.
So this is not unusual. Although it helps if there's more than one person hearing the voice. A collective sighting or experience or independent corroboration really lends substantiation to objectivity.
You're on one scale. I interview an incredible man called Father Malachi Martin.
Oh, I know who he is.
Yeah, sure. Advisor to 2 popes and the quintessential exorcist. And he's been doing exorcisms for years, and there's no question in this man's mind. But he is convinced, Doctor, that it is a demonic. Mm-hmm. And when we come back, I see we're at the top of the hour already again. I would like to ask you whether you think there are demonic presences as well, so I will do that. But again, straight into the area of, do we exist? Is there an existence beyond physical life? Well, I'll tell you, it's the $64 billion question. What do you think? How many real atheists are there out there? I suspect, I'm not sure, but I suspect not too many real ones. I'm Art Bell, and this is Dreamland. All right, hello there, Broadcast.com audience. Let me give you a rendition of the phone numbers again. I see we're getting an excellent response. Thank you all. But this is one wild show. How about the rest of you? You're still a little shaky on whether there might be an existence after this life? No, I have to admit it, I really am. I'm shaky about it. I'm hopeful and I pray about it, but I'm such a hands-on kind of person that I just don't know. I just don't know. How about you? And I know some of the responses can be, oh, come on, Art. You have to have faith. And I don't know why I can't. Faith implies a leap beyond the available evidence to believe in something, and I'm not yet to that point. My fault. Anyway, listen, here are the phone numbers. If you want to be on after the news break, which I will bring up here in a moment. First-time callers, area code 702-727-1222. Wildcard line, area code 702-727-1295. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. That's 1-800-825-5033 here or in Canada. And west of the Rockies, 1-800-618-8255. That's 1-800-618-8255. Let's see what's new in the world, and then it's back to Dr. Taff. This is Dreamland. It is indeed, and my guest is Dr. Barry Taff, and we're talking about actually many things. His new book is Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, Explorations of the Unknown. We'll tell you how to get that, by the way, or when it's going to become available. Would love to hear from you. I've got a fax here, and I've got certainly a big question about things demonic. Now, as we were discussing just prior to the break, as you well know, if you're a listener of my show, I've had Father Malachi Martin on many times, and he's a pretty convincing guy when it comes to the fact that these are demonic presences. We'll get back to Dr. Taff in a moment. Most guys just don't get it. But the smart ones understand that females react in a very special, very emotional way to flowers. And Absolutely Fresh Flowers, my sponsor, is a flower farm that sells flowers to the American public, that's you, at a wholesale rate, minus the cost of next-day delivery by FedEx, boom, like that. They will sell you the same number of flowers that a wholesaler would get for that amount of money. And that's a lot of flowers, folks. Believe me, she's going to love them. They arrive next day, courtesy of FedEx, as I mentioned, part of the price, with a card inside, a personalized card from you, with your message of love and caring and your name at the bottom, all handwritten. The kind of service you don't get anymore in this day and age. It's $52.95, and boy, is it effective. Give it a try. Absolutely Fresh Flowers. 1-800-562-6438. That's 1-800-562-6438. Are you overweight? Would you like to lose an average 8 to 10 pounds in the next month? We know that fiber helps sweep fat out of the digestive tract like a broom, reducing the amount of fat your body stores as excess weight. Well, let me tell you about a revolutionary fiber, chitosan. It's a natural fiber that comes from shellfish. It not only sweeps fat, but also absorbs up to 10 times more fat than other fibers. You can get this fiber in a formula called ChitoSlim. ChitoSlim is effective because you can lose weight without changing your eating habits. And there are no stimulants. It's a gentle, effective way to lose excess weight. Here's the special offer. When you order a 90-day supply of Kaito Slim, you'll get an antioxidant moisturizing cream absolutely free. Call 1-800-557-4627. It's guaranteed to work or your money back, and it's not available in stores. So call 1-800-557-4627. That's 1-800-557-4627. You've got nothing to lose but the fact. Well, all right. Once again, Dr. Barry Taff. Doctor, welcome back.
Oh, great.
All right. I know this is going to put you really on the spot, but as I said, I've interviewed Dr. Martin many times, Father Martin, and there is no doubt in his mind whatsoever about heaven and hell and God and Satan and demonic presence. Where does all that fit in, or does it fit in with what you know to be true or suspect to be true?
Well, first of all, as a researcher and as an investigator with a scientific, orientation, our desire and intent is to try to document and learn something about the nature of the phenomena. Not much is known about it. It's more speculative at this point. But if you come from a religious perspective, obviously, based on all the writings of the Bible, people have, for millennia have thought this to be demonic, or some people suspected that to be. But basically, it's sort of like the three blind men, holding the elephant. Depending on what you perceive and what you're holding and how you interpret that, you call what you're experiencing something different. I don't even like to deal with the religious implications because it muddies the water. It's difficult enough trying to really establish a credible base of information regarding the phenomenon. When you bring in religious...
Well, in other words, when you're taking the scientific approach, the religious angle muddies the water.
Oh, terribly so. Doesn't mean it doesn't have any merit. It just means that it just makes it creates more noise than we currently need.
All right, and I don't want the audience to take that the wrong way. You're listening to somebody coming at all of this from a very scientific perspective, and that's not putting down religion in any way, if I'm hearing this correctly. It's simply saying we can't mix it in with magnetometers and recorders and video camcorders and the rest of it, right?
Right. It's the same thing as sort of like people long ago would say, if man was meant to fly, he'd have wings. So don't develop aircraft and don't develop spacecraft. So,
all right. Well, look, let me go back. I've got a fax here from Kevin who asks about the pennies. I'm curious, too. We didn't really finish that. I mean, you said you were ankle deep in pennies that fell from the ceiling. He asks, what did they look like? Were they new? Were they dated? Did they all have the same date? Were they in circulation? Old? Dirty? What?
Pretty much a potpourri. Old, new, dirty, clean. They weren't out of circulation. They were pennies. We never could determine a source, but it didn't end with that. We had fire spontaneously break out in the house. We had a news crew from KTTV, which is now Fox. They were chased out of the house. This is the Hollymont case in Chapter 1 of my book. They were chased out of the house by flying objects.
Chased out of the house?
Chased. In fact, an ice tray flew at them, a sack of napkins flew at them. When they ran out of the front of the house, Connie Fox, the newswoman, newscaster, there was a Z-shaped stairwell in front of the house, a big stairway. As she ran out of the house screaming, a huge book, flew over the house, flapping its pages like wings.
Yeah.
It followed her down the front of the house, making 3 distinct angled turns, meaning 9-degree turns, as it followed her down the stairs and dropped at her feet.
Holy moly.
And she was hysterical.
I'd be catatonic.
And we tried to capture some of this, but our equipment was failing. The power on the block and the house was going out. The street lamp in front was blinking, and it wasn't even on at that time.
Well, let me tell you, I know there's something to this because I have talked with other professional camera crews with fresh Betacam batteries in that just flat failed.
Right.
And the minute they would go out of the house or out of the area, they function again in the area. They don't work at all.
Right, and this is a lot of times during the course of these investigations, the phenomena just turns off your instrumentation, shuts it down. But you see, more miraculous than it turning off equipment is what we call apports, where objects will appear and disappear in front of you.
Yes.
And in the Hollymont case, I had just put a glass of iced tea down next to me on a cabinet on the sink.
Yes.
Put some lemon in it. I turned back from the refrigerator. It was gone. I found it through 2 locked doors 2 rooms away that I had locked. So that gets very interesting.
Yeah, you've just got to really have big cojones to do this kind of thing. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Barry Taff. Hi there.
Hi, Art. Hi, Dr. Taft.
Where are you, sir?
I'm calling right outside of Reno, Nevada. Art.
Okay.
I'm Ray. Doctor, I have a couple of questions for you. Our time is short here, but something that happened to me about 5 years ago. I was working at a youth camp on an Indian reservation here in Nevada, and I was coming out of the camp one night to take one of the boys to the hospital in near my community. On the way back, I see these faces. Now, keep in mind, this is on Native American land. I see these faces. I'm looking at bushes, and all of a sudden, they turn into faces for what seemed like a split second, and then just disappeared. Needless to say, I was quite beside myself, and I've consulted with several different Native American, what they call medicine men, if you will. Well?
Yeah.
Okay. And they just didn't seem to have the answer. I don't mind telling you, my story here, of course, is not as dramatic as yours, but it just scared me. Now, could this just be the reason? I mean, I'm asking why. Why would they reveal themselves to me? Would there be just one reason or another?
All right. Well, Doctor, let me back that up with something else regarding Native Americans. Denver International Airport was built over what a lot of Native Americans are claiming was sacred Native American territory, ground. And DIA has been absolutely plagued with some of the worst kind of troubles you can possibly imagine. And to this very day, they're having those troubles. So this man encountered what he thought were Native American spirits, ghosts, whatever you want to call them.
It's not that uncommon, actually. I've heard many stories over the years of people, not quite identical to what this man has described, but similar in that they've had on Native American, grounds, where they've had run-ins with something that, really unnerved them. Sometimes glowing apparitions, sometimes, full-bodied apparitions, sometimes faces. And the problem is it's really hard to know what it is you're dealing with because it's a subjective experience. You don't have a camera. There aren't a whole bunch of people observing the same thing at the same time. So we're left with, is it the environment that's affecting you, or is it some force in the environment that's trying to subtly communicate with you? And, no one knows. I mean, this is a real hard thing to pin down.
And this is a question that I frequently ask people like yourself. Do you anticipate, Doctor, that, number one, during our lifetimes, this question about life after death will be settled? You think that's possible?
Oh, unquestionably not. No.
Not.
I think it's going to be, and I'll tell you that I would be surprised that if there are breakthroughs in this area, which is, problematic at best, but if there were real breakthroughs, that information would probably be withheld or disseminated over a long period of time because it would be very shocking to a lot of people, one way or the other. It's the same thing regarding if, let's say, the whole can of worms regarding the UFO phenomenon was dumped in, people's laps. I think it would be extremely destabilizing for our culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do too.
People are real content just to move along, live their lives, be happy, have food, have shelter, have friends, have family, experience love and rest and recreation. They don't need their lives disrupted and put into turmoil. And if you start contemplating other worlds that you have no control over, that makes life more difficult.
All right. Let's go east of the Rockies. You're on the air with Dr. Barry Taff. Hi.
Hello, Art. This is Mike in Edison, New Jersey. Usually listen to you over WCTC in New Brunswick, first time on broadcast.com. Pleasure to speak with you.
Glad to have you.
Dr. Taff, somewhat along the lines of Art's first caller, I'm very skeptical about ghosts. In particular, I usually hear about ghosts in the context of human apparitions. In your experience and work, have you ever encountered ghosts of animals or pets that you've done work with? and if so, under what circumstances?
That's a really, really, really good question. Really good question. Thank you, caller. All right, go ahead, doctor.
The first case I ever investigated, which of course is in the book, occurred 30 years ago, in 1968. Pasadena, a very nice elderly couple called me and came out there, and they described they had a phantom cat. Their cat died, and they were experiencing it. And of course, the most logical interpretation is they're morbidly depressed. They're missing the cat. They had it for many years, and they're hallucinating. But, I'm interviewing them. They're describing their experiences, and I'm checking, their background, their psychological and medical background. In the midst of this interview, something jumps on my lap. Now, I can't see it, but I can feel the paws. I can feel the claws, and it's kneading, pulling at my pants. And before I go to be able to touch it, it jumps off my lap onto the couch, and the couch depresses in response to it. But nothing was physically visible to the eye.
Oh my God, that really happened, huh?
And I jumped because I didn't expect anything to occur. I'm interviewing these people, and that really drove a point home that something was occurring beyond these people's imagination.
All right, but the implication here is that animals have the same opportunity at some sort of, I'm not going to say afterlife, continued existence after physical death, some sort of opportunity, as do we, which implies, we call it a soul in human beings. What is it in a cat?
Well, why shouldn't there be a soul? They experience emotion. They have likes and dislikes. They have needs and wants. They have feelings. They may be not precisely.
Oh, no, it's true. It's true.
And they bond very strongly to their owners.
You're talking here to a cat person. I've got 3 cats, and so
I've also a cat lover.
This one got to me a little bit. Oh God, if I were to feel a cat jump in my lap. I know exactly what you mean by the kneading motion. I just don't know how you make it through life, doctor.
I guess because if something isn't a direct or implied threat, it doesn't bother me. If something puts a gun to my head, I'm going to jump. If I see a knife coming at me, I'm going to run. If I see a car plunging towards me, I'm going to, move. But these things, I'm not, except for one of the cases we discussed earlier, generally are not threatening. It's just that we don't know what it is, so we have a fight or flight response.
You bet. Now, things flying through the air, knives, that sort of thing, or a book chasing me, I absolutely couldn't handle that. Would you say, again, this represents, this kind of real physical manifestation that we're talking about here, represents what, about 10% of the cases?
Probably 5.
5.
The only reason is that, I should preface this or clarify it, it's real rare to be in these environments when the phenomena transpires. Most of the time you go out, you interview the people, you do some background checking and questioning, and that's it. It's very uncommon to be there when the phenomena occurs. It's like being in an airport when a plane crashes. It's like astronomical. So we go in expecting nothing, and most of the time nothing happens. That doesn't mean there's nothing there. It doesn't mean something is there. Just that we are not present with sufficient frequency to encounter the phenomena.
Well, of course, followers of most mainstream religions, particularly, at least in the West, would really bristle at even the mention of the possibility of animals having souls. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a study done by a doctor. I had it posted on my website. Way back in the late 1800s, it was a good, sound, scientific a study of people who were measured, actually put on scales at the moment of death, and at the exact instant of death, they lost 3/4 of 1 ounce. Now, they did the same experiment with animals and noted no change. Now, of course, in 1998, you could never in a gazillion years do this kind of an experiment, a controlled experiment. I don't think you could politically get away with it, but there was that one well-documented experiment. I posted it up on the website. It had been myth, and then I finally found it. That would imply that there's a an actual weight involved in whatever leaves us at the moment of death.
But there's also an alternative explanation, which is a little more prosaic, and that is when the physical body dies, there are ongoing processes that cease, to terminate. Some of these involve hydrostatic pressure, fluid balance, gases, and those collectively might constitute the loss that's described in that study.
They might, but that was included in the study. In other words,
I don't think they had the technology in those days to really deal with that adequately, which might be why. But also, animals being much smaller in their physical structure might be such a marginal or
hard to measure. In other
right,
words,
almost. But again, with current technology and our greater understanding of physiology, both human and animal, we might be able to look at this data with a different perspective and get a greater insight on it.
I was talking with one of I can't recall which guest now, and I related this recent out-of-body experience I had in Paris. Mm-hmm. And the guest told me, guess what? That's as dead as you're ever going to be. Now, do you buy into that?
Well, I don't. Does he mean dead in terms of that's when you die, that's it, and this is like more like an illusion, or I don't quite understand?
No, but when he said that's as dead as you're ever going to be, the ecstasy that I felt, that I still can't properly describe in words, honestly. This incredible, wonderful feeling that I felt is as dead as I'm ever going to be. In other words, death will mimic or go beyond even that.
Okay, I sort of mostly concur with what you're saying. When I was, as I said, when I was younger, I had a large amount of out-of-body experiences, and it was very pleasant once you overcome the shock of it. The almost trauma. Very pleasant,
that's right.
Tranquil experience, because you can pretty much go anywhere, by sheer thought. And once you realize that you're not in any jeopardy, it's a very sort of, I guess, it's a profound altered state that makes you really ponder yourself and who you are and where you're going.
I know.
The whole thing is when you leave your body, what is it that leaves the body, and what is it that perceives the information? And that's what I want to know.
And is it really, can we actually document that people leave their bodies? There does seem to be a body of evidence.
Substantial evidence.
Yeah,
Dr. Charles Tart at UC Davis has done some of the most remarkable research, strongly suggesting that something quasi-tangible can be detected by perhaps animals or instrumentation, and certainly that we can bring back objective information remote from our body.
Oh, look, there are so many guests I have on. Dr. Bruce Goldberg. They have actually documented people who have left their bodies, gone to other states, seen things that have then been absolutely verified that could not possibly have been known in any other way. I mean, there's a lot of documented evidence about this. But again, this is something that's done while we're alive.
Right. But why wouldn't I should say the reason I agree with what you said earlier is that I believe that the out-of-body experience is probably as close as we can come conceptually to what it's like to not have our body anymore. And there may be an analogy to death, but the only difference is in death there's no body to come back to.
All right, when we get back after the break, I'm going to ask you about your book. And tell me, Doctor, do you think this is going to be your field of study for the rest of your life? Are you locked in now?
Oh, unquestionably. I mean, I could no more give this up than I could. I would willingly lose the rest of my hair.
All right. Hold on. We'll be back to you in a moment. From an area adjacent to an area called Dreamland, this is Dreamland. I'm Art Bell. Stay right where you are. Again, here I am, and we will ask Dr. Taff in a moment about his book, and I've got several faxes here. One available line west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. And somebody is about to comment, you'll hear it in the fax, on the pet situation. That one absolutely, if you're a cat person,
I'm sure that one blew you away. As you know, we talk about ghosts from time to time. Now, Ghost is a sponsor, really. And this definitely is a friendly ghost. The new Ghost version 5.0 is actually a fantastic new product from Binary Research International that takes the scariness out of computer use. It's the ultimate system installation and PC cloning solution. Ghost can quickly install Windows 98, 95, Windows NT, and OS2 workstations. This friendly Ghost is perfect for backing up against those unfriendly spirits that might haunt your computer. Oh, and if you manage computer networks, well, Ghost can help multicast your software applications over networks. In fact, it's the only cloning solution with both multicasting and NTFS resizing of hard drives. So, if you want a friendly spirit in your computer, call on Ghost. For a free evaluation copy of Ghost, just go up to ghost.com. That's GHOST.com. Or call them toll-free, 1-888-GHOST-98. That's 1-888-GHOST-98. All right, back now, well, not quite back to my guest in a moment. I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dreamland. Here's a product that continues to blow me away every day, the Snappy Video Snapshot. It grabs the most stunning pictures from any camcorder, TV, or VCR and puts them right into your PC and costs just $99. In fact, I use my Snappy to get the great photographs you see on my website. The computer industry's gone wild for it. Snappy's won 25 major awards thus far. Nothing wins that many awards. It just doesn't happen except with Snappy. Listen to how the computer experts are raving. PC Magazine proclaimed Snappy the best peripheral of the year. They said, quote, every once in a while we see a product so impressive it makes us rethink an entire category. That certainly was the case with Play Inc.'s Snappy Video Snapshot, end quote. Snappy is simply incredible. You've got to see it in action to believe it. I love mine. And for just $99, Snappy is the perfect gift for anyone with a PC. No PC could be complete without one. I want you to check out the amazing Snappy pictures and the company Play Incorporated at www.play.com, or go get your Snappy today at computer stores everywhere. All right, now back to Dr. Taff. Doctor, welcome back.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Here's somebody who expresses my feelings. Hello, Art. I hope you're feeling better. I am, thank you. In response to the pet ghost situation, I live in an old Victorian house in Alameda, California. I have several spirits with whom I coexist peacefully. One of my spirits is a Maine coon cat named Taylor. He lived here in the flesh until 94, when he died a few months before his owner, who passed away in June of 94. She's here, too. Her name is Sharon. Many times I've seen Taylor's huge, fluffy self, though somewhat transparent. He's also rubbed against my leg, and I have not only felt it, but seen my trouser leg move. I love my spirits, and they love me. They are very protective. Sandra in Alameda.
Well, it's certainly a fresh look and attitude towards this phenomenon, that's for sure.
And then one other. We talked earlier briefly about voice phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
And this question, I'm sure Dr. Taff must have some good stories about electronic voice phenomena. And could we hear one? Does he have any? I should have hit you with that in the break when you could have prepared it.
Not really. I know other people who are doing the work in it. I haven't followed it that closely. I've read books on the subject. I said I know some of the people doing the work in it. The best I could say is, I think last time I was on your show, I played a tape of a man allegedly possessed, and what was unique about the utterances coming forth from his mouth was they were analyzed by several different facilities, and we were told that this was not a human or an animal. It was a machine, because there were pure sine waves coming out of his mouth, which are impossible to achieve for anything with the larynx. So that made us wonder what's going on. So that's about as close as I've come to, unusual sounds.
Do you collect sounds from other people, or do you only trust that which you have collected yourself?
Generally speaking, in terms of all data, I prefer to go with what I myself have recorded, because especially when it comes to auditory things, there's so many variables, and there's so many ways to misconstrue, misinterpret information. I like it if it's my recorder or my instrument, my microphone, my tape.
Boy, do I understand that.
Someone else, because you never know. And, there's all sorts of extraneous variables that can play havoc with what you're doing if you're not really careful.
The other problem is we live in a day and age, and it is proven to me every day by these computer whizzes out there who send me photographs of myself with aliens and ghosts, and frankly, they're better than a lot of the purported true ghost photographs or alien photographs. And it's so how can you trust any evidence?
Right. That's one of the real main gripes or put forth by skeptics and debunkers, and it's a very good statement. However, the logic that just because we can fake something, therefore everything is fake, is faulty logic. Because that would say that, well, we can make a great movie about going to the moon, so I guess we never had the Apollo program.
I'm glad you brought that up, because several times, Doctor, I have put photographs up of things that I knew to be absolutely authentic, either because I took them myself or because they occurred to me. And I put them up, and even totally authentic things, you will get somebody who will say, I took out my Photoshop number 6 or whatever, and I went down to pixel number 597, and I saw a gray shaded area on the right. Your photograph is a fake. Now, that comes even when the photographs are genuine. So we have this day and age where nothing is believed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are, the people out there who say that you get captured in the anomalous, luminous activity, and they say, well, obviously it's computed CG, or it's, done with some type of optical printing process.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but see, again, it's faulty logic. I remember I met some people from Caltech JPL, very respected scientists, and we were talking, and they're extremely dubious about all this stuff, which is understandable. And they said that if they witnessed a huge table that get up and fly around the room, they know it didn't happen. It was either they were hallucinating, or there were magnets under the table, or there were wires. But no, tables don't move. I said, even if you say, well, then if it wasn't wires or magnets, or I wasn't hallucinating, then it wouldn't happen.
All right. Your new book, I want to get that in before I somehow forget, because all of this is fascinating. Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, Explorations of the Unknown. When is the book? Is it available now?
Right. It's currently available for immediate download off the Internet. And the main site that's linked actually through your site is called www.netbooks. That's netbooks.com.
Right. We've got that linked up now.
Right. And you can go to your site and go directly to NetBooks, and you can download the book instead of for $24 for $9.95. And it's got the photographs and the captioning, and it's got 15 chapters and an introduction, and it covers many of the cases we've talked of today in much greater depth. And in the other case, in fact, there's a lengthy discussion of the entity case, far beyond what was originally published.
Really?
The original article and updated it with a preface and an afterword, and about what happened to the woman afterward, what all the rumors and speculation about who she was and everything, and why the movie didn't accurately reflect the book, and how the book didn't accurately reflect the reality. And so it's a much broader view of the case and gives a different perspective than has been really looked at before.
All right, your background has been mainly in paranormal phenomena. What made you begin to examine the whole alien question all of a sudden?
Well, for one, probably back to the dawn of human civilization, most cultures have reported phenomena beyond just paranormal, but reported odd aeroforms and these weren't meteorites or comets. These were objects that, for all intents and purposes, resemble modern UFOs. Goes back to pre-biblical times, actually. But beyond that, the amount of evidence that's been collected for the last half century and documented in books and periodicals and journals is awesome. But even more than that, as I said, many of our cases, we've had a plethora of cases that began as poltergeist manifestations and ended up as an abduction or a CE3, or began as an abduction and ended up as a poltergeist case.
All right. Well, I asked you earlier if you thought in our lifetimes we might break through the barrier of life and death, and you said no. What if I were to ask you, do you think in our lifetimes we will begin to get answers or get answers regarding all of these things that fly in our skies, abduct, make crop circles, whatever it is they're doing?
I think we might, but it won't be at the behest of our government. I don't think our government's going to open up a can of worms and say, here, folks, we've been lying to you for half a century, and here's why. So just panic, and we'll sit back and watch. No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Although the government, I recall Hazel O'Leary walking out and saying, we've been lying to you for half a century or near it, and that there were experiments where plutonium was intentionally given to people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, an astounding revelation. Astounding.
Right. But I don't think these pale by comparison. You see, my attitude is this. Our government has only a couple of major concerns about the population. One is that they're governable. Panic-stricken, anxiety-ridden, depressed, self-defeated population
would not be governable.
Right, and they would not write checks every April 15th because they wouldn't care. If we're not the supreme rulers on this world, why are they going to look up to the government and pay them their money every year?
Boy, are you right about
Why would they elect officials if we are the result of someone else's experiments? And and our leaders cannot protect us, or our skies, assuming there's protection even needed, but cannot even safeguard us against, invasion or lack of, I guess you'd say, invasion of strange aeroforms. Well, then why should we bother to pay the money every year?
Well, instead, we'd probably have to write out a check to the Greys or something.
Or
somebody's going to charge us.
Or, and this goes back to the comments earlier, I think our religious institutions would face radical revision regarding if we're not made in God's image, if we're made in some reptilian humanoid somewhere, light years away, decided let's play with pre-humans on Earth and produce humans, and this were revealed, if this were true, that wouldn't have a humbling effect on most people.
No, it sure wouldn't.
And I get into this in the book,
do you?
In depth, in the chapter 10. I go into this, but it's called UFOs, the Bottom Line. I get into this in depth about what's going on, and basically, if you knew that the information you were going to disseminate to the people would devastate them and leave them self-negated, and
right,
would you do it? What's the point? You're trying to keep a society functional and whole and integrated.
You're absolutely correct. All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Taff and Art Bell. Hello there.
Hello, Art?
Yes.
Yes, I have 5 ghosts in my home.
You have 5 ghosts?
I have 5 of them.
Where are you, sir?
I'm here in Farmington Hills, Michigan.
Okay.
You listen to you on audio net because I can't stay up all night.
That's fine. That's where we are.
I have cats, and I lost 5 of them here in the last 2 years. 4 this year, and didn't have any. Well, it's not a problem because they don't bother me.
What do they do? I mean, how do you know you've got?
How do I know?
Yeah.
Well, they're here. If I lay down on a couch, you'll jump and you'll hear them on the vinyl, and they'll walk across it, and they want to just sit down like they always did. Or at night, they'll come up and they'll pop up on the bed, and each one always used to have a place of its own.
I know.
And they'll come up and they'll knead right behind my head.
Oh.
And one of them last night, my favorite cat, I know it was her, it laid right on my arm. You could feel the weight.
Oh, my.
It's amazing, and I'm real curious if I can somehow photograph them.
Oh, what a good question.
And I've got one of these Vicams ordered for my computer.
Yes.
And it's got night vision. I'm just curious if the infrared might pick it up.
Well, that's a good scientifically based question. Doctor, what about that? I mean, if you've got an entity, human or animal, that is obviously present, and you want to try to document this somehow, want to try to photograph, what would you try?
Well, you start with the greatest simplicity first. You might try simple Polaroids to see if anything shows up in those shots. You might try those new camcorders that have, like, I think it's called Night Spot or something.
Well, it's the new Sony camcorder that now they're claiming can see through clothing.
Right, which actually it can, by the way.
It can?
Yeah, well, basically you're in the, I think, the 7 to 10 micron region, and that can see thermal emission through clothes. Yeah. So it's not like being Superman, but it's getting there.
Well, CNN did a story on it. We're diverting here. CNN did a story on it last week, which said they tried under the brightest lights they could find, and they couldn't see through clothes. Nevertheless, Sony has announced they will ship no more of these cameras to the U.S., which is causing a run on the existing stock.
Well, also, the whole thing is you shouldn't shoot in light at all. You shoot in dim light or no light. That's when you get the best resolution. So they went in the wrong direction. But to answer the caller's question, there are methods. You could get an image intensifier, which they call a night vision, which certainly would probably help enhance the optical image.
Oh, yes.
That's presupposing, of course, that this phenomena emits, very low energy photons, either in the infrared or the visible spectrum. Maybe also if you get ultraviolet lenses, you might try to shoot in that region with still film. You may have some success.
Hey, caller.
Yes.
I've actually got something for you to try. All right.
Uh-huh.
If you have a device that emits infrared, something I discovered about 2 weeks ago is that cats can see in infrared.
Can they?
And we can't.
Uh-huh.
And I proved this beyond any shadow of a doubt by, I've got a little pen that emits, like the laser pen.
Right, I've seen.
Only this one emits infrared.
Oh, yeah.
And my cat absolutely would chase the infrared all over the place, and I couldn't see a thing.
Uh-huh. I'll try that. That should be interesting.
All right?
If I get anything, we'll let you know. Enjoy your show.
All right, thank you very much, and take care. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Again, being a cat person, I lost one cat, and I've never had a cat jump on me or knead on me that was a ghost of a cat, and I don't know that I want that, but I've had very strong feelings that my cat, whose name was Yesu, has been present or around me or near me. Now, that could be a manifestation of my own wishful thinking in my mind because I love that cat so much. I don't know.
Well, see, it's very common, Ark, for people who lose someone close to them, whether that be a pet or it be a loved one, a husband, wife, father, mother, sister, brother, to really feel they're around, whether they be or not, simply because it's normal to have those feelings. In fact, it's abnormal not to have those feelings. So the question is, are those feelings just because we're human and we want that bond to be maintained, or is it because something is present? And that's the million-dollar question, as we said.
Do you have you communicated with or had a dialogue with any atheists?
Oh yeah, over the years, in lectures I've given, classes I've taught, they've come forward and made their points clear to me or their views clear to me.
Atheists appear to be almost as passionate in their view of the great nothing as those who believe in the great something.
Well, it's almost like
a religion.
Well, they say that if there were such things as ghosts or aliens, it would have to be manifestations of God or the devil, and since there is no such thing as God or the devil, there is no phenomena. So again, it's faulty logic. Their reasoning isn't very clear. But it's hard, really. I don't waste a lot of my time and energy dealing with debunkers or these hardcore skeptics or people that have no open mind. In other words, their mind's made up. They don't want to deal with the facts because one debunker I was talking to on one show I was on, a TV show, he said, no matter what evidence you bring me or brought me, or no matter what I observed, I know this phenomenon doesn't exist. I go, then why are you here? You're not here to debate it. You're here to tell everyone that you don't believe. And I said,
was that Phil Glass?
No, this was someone else from Psychop.
Oh, yes. I'm familiar with the group. I get email from them in copious amounts.
Right, and, I made it clear, on the show that, I understand how science functions of replicating your data in controlled environments and, the replicability, the whole thing. And I said if this phenomena worked in accordance with the scientific method per se, we'd either, and it never occurred, we wouldn't be discussing it. If it occurred all the time, again, it'd be no mystery, it'd be part of our world. the fact that it occurs some of the time and not all the time tells us one very important thing, and that is we're ignorant.
We're ignorant, huh?
About a very powerful and dramatic aspect of the world we live in.
In other words, if we were smart enough, sensitive enough to this phenomena, it would be your view that we would see its manifestation virtually any time.
Well, if we can make it work as reliable as the rest of our senses are, as reliably as the rest of our senses are, it'd be an established part of our world. If no one ever had these experiences, it was just like a vacuous land of nothing. Again, there'd be nothing to contest. The fact that it occurs some of the time, not all the time, tells us that we're missing out on something.
Now, you remember I asked you earlier, and we're running out of time. I could do 6 programs on this. I asked you earlier if we were suddenly to find out there was a great nothing out there, what effect on society? How about the opposite question? If we were to suddenly find out there is an afterlife, absolutely is an afterlife, what effect would that have on society?
Yeah, my feeling is it might turn a lot more people towards religion, perhaps in the short term. And also it depends on what we learned about that afterlife. What is it?
No doubt we would get a partial answer. We wouldn't get a whole answer. We would find out somehow there is a barrier, there is something over there, but we don't yet quite know what it is, but we can declare there is something. That, you're right. In the short term, that would probably turn a whole lot of people toward religion. We're out of time. Doctor, thank you. I hope lots of people go up online and download your book. And as always, we'll have you on again. Thank you so very much.
It was my pleasure, Art.
All right. Take care. Dr. Barry Taff. That's it, folks. Out of time. Thank you. From an area near Dreamland, good night.